America has had its fair share of racing automotive legends over the past century. Guys like Dan Gurney, Carrol Shelby, Steve Saleen, but today, we're not talking about any of those guys, but one of the biggest names in the automotive aftermarket and racing today. This is the story of how a kid from Kentucky went from working for Ford to working with Ford, becoming a man who's really become the Tony Stark of the car world, and the story of how one man can wear the same freaking hat for over 30 years. This is Premium Heritage, I'm Ryan Kotob, and this is the story of Jack freaking Roush. Jack Ernest Roush was born in Covington, Kentucky on April 19, 1942. And from a young age, Roush liked to get his hands dirty. After his family moved to Manchester, Jack's dad, Charlie, ran a delivery business. And Jack could be seen tagging along with his dad while he worked on his delivery trucks. And it's here that Jack actually got his knack for building things. Little Jack would literally run around his family's house with a screwdriver in his pocket, looking for stuff to take apart and put back together. This dude was so creative. By the age of 10, it was clocks. By 15, he was working on freaking cars. And by 22, he had built 4 hot rods with honkin' V8s in them. Roush graduated from Barrera College in 1964 with a minor in physics, the same year that Ford actually entered into the 24 Hours of Le Mans. To continue his education and to get his foot finally into the automotive industry door, Roush made the move to Michigan. It was here that he would start his work for a little automotive brand called Ford. During his time as an engine engineer for Ford, Roush was entranced by the company's racing involvement. Working for Ford while the GT40 kicked ass across the pond, Roush knew that the racing world was the place for him. Roush graduated in 1970 with a master's degree in scientific mathematics. Nobody really knows what that is today, but it is what it is, and formally resigned from Ford as an employee. And although his work for Ford ended there, connections with the Blue Oval were far from over. After his time at Ford, Roush put his engine building skills to the ultimate test and started his own drag racing team with driver and friend Wayne Gap. Wayne was drag racing before he became an engine technician at Ford, and that's actually the same place where he met Roush. With Jack working his engine under the hood and Wayne behind the wheel, this duo of Gap and Roush became a huge force to be reckoned with on the drag strip. Gap and Roush would spend the early 70s running their pro stock Ford Pinto all around the country. It's crazy to think that this little Ford Pinto goes so freaking fast. And the results were explosive. See what I did there? Through the early 1970s, the dynamic duo would win numerous events and championships in the NHRA, the IHRA, and the AHRA, and I didn't even know there were that many HRAs. Jack stepped away from drag racing in 1976, but kept his name in the sport by building and selling motors to teams. Throughout the rest of the decade, cars would actually be seen all around, powered by Jack Roush Performance engineering. Jack's prowess was known for the short and straight line racing, but still had the itch to go for sports car racing. So when Jack got the call from Ford asking for his help on designing and building the new Mustang for IMSA, it didn't take him that long to say, "Hell yeah, brother." So in 1983, Roush Performance collaborated with the German racing team Zach Speed to quickly make a new Ford Mustang, brand new regs, in IMSA's GTP class. Roush was on chassis duty and focused on making sure the Fox body Mustang could stay glued to the track. Naturally, Roush was kind of pissed off, not only because Ford kept Roush from supplying his specialty of engine building, but because the engine was an inline 4 turbo. Really, he was a V8 guy, so it wasn't really gonna work. So Ford wanted the new car to have a more future-oriented appeal. This had a lot of similar DNA to the cause he threw in the RS200 Group B car and could make well over 500 horsepower at the wheels. So naturally, Roush did what came natural to him and pulled away from the program before the season even ended. This was far from the end of their sports car program. Roush Performance would become a menace in US road racing. Their time in the IMSA prototypes and the Trans Am series would bring over 100 wins and 24 championships, and most bonkers of all, this team got 10 class consecutive wins at the 24 Hours of Daytona, hosting drivers like Scott Pruitt, Willie T. Ribbs, NASCAR icons like Mark Martin, Bill Elliott, and Kyle Petty himself, and even guys like Paul Newman and Bruce Jenner. It's a weird one. But by 1987, Roush had become dominant in road racing all around America. And it was all throughout this year that he would get another call from Ford with yet another offer. And this opportunity was actually a good one. An opportunity to continue carrying the Blue Oval into the ever-growing world of NASCAR with technical and financial assistance directly from Ford themselves. Roush Racing debuted with Mark Martin in 1988. The success was almost instant. Roush was able to apply his engine expertise better than than ever, and began an oval racing freaking empire. But it wasn't easy. As his NASCAR program grew, Roush's sports car program continued strong through the early 1990s. Ask any car guy about what Roush is today, and they'll probably respond with one of the two answers. Aren't they a team in NASCAR, or aren't they the guys that tune a bunch of Mustangs? When Jack's descendants from the motorsport heights to give us common folk a piece of racing engineered for the road. Roush wanted to do this since his NASCAR program started in 1988, approaching Ford with the twin-turbo Mustang. They were stoked about it, but deemed it to be too expensive to be sold to dealers. Roush came up with a final system, a kit of spare parts Ford dealers could take and install on Mustangs on showroom floors. And with that, the same year that OJ and the PlayStation were born, Jack Roush came out with Roush Performance in 1995. Across America, you could see dealers with Roush installment centers specializing in building and selling these modified Mustangs. Like all tuners, Roush sold Mustangs based on a three-stage system. Stage 1, you'd be given a Roush body kit and an increase in horsepower. Stage 2, you'd be given improved springs, struts, and an anti-roll bar if you wanted some better handling with that. Stage 3, if you even wanted more horsepower. For the past 25 years, Roush has been offering Ford customers their own special treatment on Mustangs. If you want a Ford truly like nothing else on the road, Roush is the way to go. It's trying to clear at this rate that Roush is giving the same services that a certain other Ford tuner is selling at other dealers. So let's put them head to head. Let's say you're in the market for a high-end Mustang, cream of the crop, ready to kick the butt of any 911 on the streets, or an M3 in your way. Naturally, you're batting an eye towards the Shelby GT500, but hold on just a second. Have Roush build you a Stage 3 Mustang for $25K above your base price of a GT, and you're getting pretty much the same power for almost 10 grand less. It's literally a steal these days. All orders are built and modified at Roush's plant in Livona, Michigan, and are given a serialized plaque registered with Roush Performance to avoid any cloning. Roush takes this super seriously, and it's a way of selling tuned cars unlike anything else on the road. And Roush's tuning goes well into Ford's truck line now. Want a Roucher but don't quite have the cash? Roush F-150 is the way to go. Stoke the Lightning is back, but sad it's electric? F-150 Nightmare is the way to go. Think the Raptor is too big or too small? Roush Ranger and Super Duty. Roush also sells their very own rebuilt Ford V8s as trade engines. Almost every generation of the Ford V8 at countless different levels of power are on tap for you to throw into whatever you want. Super Performance also takes the great V8s that Roush provides and puts them into their GT40 replica cars. The racing and road modding is just a piece of what Roush has to come in its giant empire. Still on the automotive side is Roush Clean Tech, helping to reduce emissions and save dyno juice for normal cars. Roush was also approached by Domino's to do a DXP delivery vehicle. You know the little Chevy Sparks that have the massive ovens in the back? This is actually one of the many times I can think that Roush has worked on something that's not a Ford. Like always, let's wrap with the oddball stuff. Lucky for you guys, we have plenty of. First off, Roush actually was a college professor. In the 1970s, Roush would spend his weekends at the drag strip, but weekdays, he was at Monroe County Community College teaching trig, physics, and even engine building. This guy even survived 2 freaking plane crashes and lived to tell the story. What a freaking guy. Personally, I will always prefer a Roush over a Saline any day of the week because I think these things are great in a straight line and the Stage 3 cars offer awesome cornering.